Love the result. Really liked our start, but hated the finish. Maybe didn't like the finish is a fair way to put it, because we still did what we had to do in the second half to come out of the stadium with a dub. But that second half was ugly, man. We made it more interesting than what it needed to be. We talk about Tomlin losses. Like, this was, in a way, the epitome of a Tomlin win, because, we got the game wrapped up. It's what, 10-0 going into half, 13-0 for the majority of the second half. And then we, make it interesting. We don't put our foot to the pedal on offense. Defense starts giving up some yards, starts giving Bo Nix and the Broncos some momentum at times. Still, big credit to the defense, though. Big credit to this team. As I said, the first thing I just said, love the result. It's all about getting the dub, but we're not going to be able to be doing this against the Bengals, because it looks like Joe Burrow's back. We're not going to be able to do this against Mahomes and the Chiefs. We're not going to be able to do this against our opponent next week, presumably. Justin Herbert and the Chargers coming to town. Jim Harbaugh is the coach. We can't be letting more premier teams stick around like that, because we're not going to like how it ends up. This was the Broncos, fortunately. This was Bo Nix, who looks a little bit out of sorts as a rookie right now in his first 2 weeks. Doesn't look right. It looks like the stage is a little too big for him. I like his fight, appreciate his fight, but just seems outmatched out there. Broncos weren't supposed to be good this year, and they're not good. They're 0-2, and you look at these two games and what they've put out there. It's been pretty ugly, both offensively and defensively. And we took advantage. We got the end result we needed. We got the dub, but there was just some things in the second half I didn't like. But there was a lot in the first half that I really, really liked, particularly on offense. I think we just got to say the defense was good all around. Let's just say that. But that second half, we did start letting Bo Nix, Denver offense, go down the field on us a little bit. Partly was because the offense wasn't able to do anything. We couldn't keep our defense off the field. So, they were getting a little tired. They were getting a little gassed. You could see that. But let's start with Fields. I liked how he played a lot. I think in the first half, I wrote this down at halftime. Like, after that first half that Fields put out there, this is some of the best quarterback play that I've seen today. He was doing everything right. He was taking his shots when he needed to. He was elevating the offense even when the surroundings were letting him down, like the penalties on the offensive line. He was able to get outside the pocket, make positive plays. You could even see on, some of the holdings, like the plays that would have been if those holdings and penalties didn't happen. The Broderick Jones one where Fields rolls out to the right and throws that one down the field to Pickens against Surtain. Holy hell. What other quarterbacks are making that throw in this league? Not too many. Not too many like that. On a dime against the other team's best cornerback. That was a laser. Perfect throw. But I thought Fields played really, really good in the first half. He was decisive, getting the ball out too. Like, it wasn't just scrambling and improvising. There were times where he'd take the snap, boom, first read, ball out, clean play, keep the sticks moving, keep us on schedule. I think he played really, really good. Second half, didn't kill us. Didn't kill us. I think that's the credit you got to give Fields, at least the second half. Didn't turn the ball over. And the stats aren't going to completely show this either, because I think he would have had more yards in that second half if it weren't for some of the penalties that the Broncos had, because there were some chunk plays he was throwing down the field. The one in particular, I remember Calvin Austin. Thank God that he's all right. That was a brutal hit that he took down the sideline. But that was a dime by Fields. My question is, do we have the weapons? Do we have the complete arsenal of assets on offense to complement Fields the way that we need it. Obviously, you could see we could win games with what we got, but we might need another playmaker across from Pickens. I like what Muth was doing. Obviously, Darnell Washington in the red zone was nice. Pickens, he's showcasing some elite stuff right now. He was going up against Surtain, and it's one of those things like I just mentioned with Fields. The stats aren't going to show it because he only had 29 yards, but anyone that actually watched the game, we would agree he was getting the best of Surtain. A lot of plays were getting called back because of penalties that, he may have, honestly, if you take all the plays that he was catching, he would have maybe had 75, 80 yards and a touchdown. It was crazy, man. Like he was looking really good out there. It was AB type of stuff. We got our best receiver matched up against your best cornerback, and you're not really able to stop it. It was almost like when we would go up against Cleveland back in the day with AB. They had Joe Hayden. We can all acknowledge Joe Hayden was a top 10 corner, maybe even top 5 corner when he was in Cleveland. They couldn't stop AB, and that's what it was looking like with Pickens. Patrick Surtain is top 3 corner in this league right now, and Pickens was making plays. Pickens was getting after it. Unfortunately, we had those penalties. Now, one of them shouldn't have been called, I think. The one in the end zone, that would have been 6. Yeah, that would have been 6 right before half. We would have been up 14-0. You even heard Gene Steratore come on the broadcast and say, yeah, if I was reffing, this wouldn't have got called. This is ticky-tacky. The defender's the one that made the initial contact. It wasn't Van Jefferson seeking the dude out. And it was actually Levi Wallace, too. It was like his second play in the game. So he got the benefit of the doubt there. Levi Wallace got a break with that call. It was like his second play. He was coming in cold. And Van Jefferson's running his route, bumps into Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace doesn't really know what's going on, but they give him the call instead of us. And we have to forfeit the 6, and Boswell kicks the field goal. But that would have been a touchdown for Pickens. Crazy body control, too, where he's like about to go over the sideline, then just reaches out. That was cool. I mean, what else do you expect from Pickens, though? He does all that stuff when the ball is in the air. So now we finally got to see it whenever he has the ball in his hands and is doing some stuff after the catch. So I think that was that the first time we've seen anything like that from him whenever he's like running with the ball. But not surprised. That's just who Pickens is with the body control and the theatrics that he could pull off. I thought Fields looked good, man. I think he's earned himself another week. And I don't even know if he had to earn himself another week, because the reports from a couple days ago from Jerry Dulac said that the Steelers were looking to play Fields week 3 either way. Like going into this Broncos games, Fields most likely had another 2 games in him before we would even start to seriously consider bringing Russ back. We won the game with Fields, man. He showed that he could at least play with the baseline that he played with against Atlanta. Don't turn the ball over. Pick your spots. Make a dynamic play here or there. And this time, actually, it's weird because we didn't have 18 total points. We had less points, but we did get the touchdown. That's the weird part. We had 18 points last week, the 6 field goals. Everyone was complaining. We got to score a touchdown. We finally scored a touchdown, but we have less total points. I told you, those 3 points can add up. Just because it was all field goals, it added up to 18. It added up to more points than we had this week. Either way, ultimately, in both games, we ended up having more than the other team come out of it with a dub. We're 2-0, top of the AFC North. I didn't get to see the end of this Bengals game. Are they still playing right now? It looks like they went up on the Chiefs most recently, but Baltimore lost today, which was awesome to see against the Raiders. And then Cleveland, unfortunately, won down in Jacksonville. Jacksonville had a chance late in the game with a Hail Mary from Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, unfortunately, the Browns won, but we're sitting at the top of the AFC North right now. No matter what the Bengals do, I'd love to see them go 0-2. 2-0, week 3, first home game against the Chargers. You can't really ask to be in a better spot than what we are right now. Now, you can question, just like we did last year, particularly with this offense, is how we're playing sustainable. Can we keep winning like this where the margin of error is going to be thin because we're only putting up points in the teens right now? That is a very fair debate. I don't know what happened on offense in that second half. It just felt like we took our foot off the gas. We weren't taking chances. Like you just want to go for that kill shot. Let's get this game over with and stop letting these opposing teams that are lesser than us hang around, and then it comes down to a final play or two. Even though we still did have the game very much in control, but all it takes is something fluky. Like we punted it to Mims, that last punt by Waitman. All it takes is for a fluky broken tackle or two, and he runs it back to the house, and then it's a tie game. We're going to overtime at Denver. That's all it takes, man. And I don't want to be in this spot all the time going forward, particularly when we got to go up against these teams late in the season, like the division rivalry games. Although we know those are always going to be close games, right? We just got to buckle up for those and expect close games against Bengals, Ravens, Browns, because that's just how AFC North ball is. But against the Chiefs, the Eagles, some of these other games coming up, Chargers, it's just, if we have, it's a different story if it's a back and forth game. Let me put it to you this way. I think it's a different story if it's a back and forth game and it's just naturally a close game. Each team is throwing their shots, throwing their punches. It's a give and take. We were up 13-0. We had the game on lock. Was anyone concerned when we were in, the middle of the third quarter that we were going to lose this? No. The question was, are we going to put up more touchdowns? Is Fields going to have a better fantasy day? Could we get 28 on? Can we get over 20 points? Score a couple more touchdowns? Can the defense hold them to a goose egg? Those were the questions I was asking in the third quarter. But then, as the game played out, it actually got close, one-score game. As I said, a fluke play here or there, and who knows? Maybe this game's still getting played right now. But I like Fields. I like what Fields did, man. And the other part of it, and I think I kind of mentioned this, with the penalties holding the offense back, particularly in that first half, I didn't see Fields get flustered, man. He was actually the calming force on offense. He was the leader there. Some of the negative plays that we were putting out there as an offensive line, the holdings and getting ourselves in bad spots, Fields was a calming presence, and he either had a positive play that would turn things around, or he would just keep the sticks moving a little bit, or keep us back on schedule, and then we'd plug along and continue to move down the field. I liked how he handled himself this game, but then you see the stuff in the second half, not only from him with the fumble snap late in the game. I don't know what's going on with these snaps. Frazier, Fields, obviously Fields wasn't ready for it. You could see the offensive linemen talking to each other like, bro, this snap count's getting down here. We got to get this off. And Fields, I don't know what he was doing. Then it hit his chest. Luckily, Jaylen Warren recovered it. But that's what I'm talking about right there. That's another perfect example. If were we down one score at that point? I can't remember if we were down. It might have been. Was that our last drive? I think we might have only been, or we were up one score at that point. I'm sorry. We're up one score. If Denver gets the ball there, who knows? Like, man, we just gave them perfect field position. It's not even necessarily a fluky play where they pull off something miraculous. It could be us doing something like that, and it puts the Broncos at good field position, and they're only down one score. And who's to say they don't go for two if they get it, right? But listen, credit to the defense, because I don't even necessarily think they would put up a touchdown in that scenario. I would put the money on the defense in stopping a Bo Nix, say like with a minute left and half the field to go. But it's just one of those things. You never know. The defense was great, man. Defense was great. I think Fields played good. I want to talk about, and it's been a theme already throughout this post-game show, the offensive line and their struggles and just the penalties all around. We had a ton of penalties on defense. Here's my problem with some of the penalties in this game. It was rough on both sides because it just starts to make the game a little bit unwatchable where you're stopping pretty much every down, and if there's a penalty, you're like, man, come on. The flow of this game is getting jacked up so much. This is an entertainment business. This isn't entertaining where we're just stopping and starting so frequently like this. But, I mean, they're calling some of our offensive linemen for holding. Dan Moore, Broderick Jones, and the 3 plays that he got in. I think he had 3 penalties, 3 plays in a row. It was just crazy. I want to talk about that right now, but I also want to get this point across in that, all right, you could be calling these penalties on our offensive linemen. I'm not going to say they're ticky-tacky or not, or should you call them or not. Yeah, maybe Dan Moore did have a little bit of a hold on that guy late in the game. Maybe Broderick Jones was holding the dude when Fields was scrambling. Sure, I could see that. TJ Watt gets held every damn play. Alex Highsmith was getting held almost every damn play. Why aren't you calling them on the Broncos like that? It is so glaring. It's like, remember back in the day when James Harrison was in his prime and you could see him going up against the other team's left tackle? You could call a hold every time. So it's crazy. And like the ones they weren't calling on Broncos O-linemen, I think were even more egregious than what Dan Moore was doing or anything Broderick Jones was doing. It was crazy, man. It was absolutely crazy. But I do want to talk about the decision to get Broderick Jones in there. Honestly, we deserved what happened to us in those 3 plays that Broderick Jones was in there, because we never should have done the flip-flop thing to begin with. I look on my phone this morning as I'm watching the 1 o'clock games. I just want to see if there's any new Steeler news that's coming across the docket, just any updates to the game, who's in, who's out. And I see the Steelers are going to play both Troy Fautanu and Broderick Jones. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing ever. Pick a guy. You got to pick a guy. Don't be doing this thing. All right, we're going to play 2 series with Fautanu, 2 series with Broderick Jones, go back to Fautanu. No. Pick a guy, say this guy's starting. Now, if whoever's starting is sucking for the first couple series, then yeah, bench him, put the other guy in. But don't do this thing where you take out a Troy Fautanu after he was playing good in the first 2 series and put it in Broderick Jones just to make Broderick Jones feel good or make yourselves feel good, like you're doing the right thing by giving each guy a fair chance. This isn't preseason anymore. This is the regular season. And this isn't college, because you could maybe pull something like this off in college. Like if you're Alabama, you got all those like 5-star quarterbacks in your QB room. Yeah, we could start this and you're going up against like Kent State or something. Yeah, we'll start this guy for a quarter. We'll start this guy for a couple series, and we'll see what the other guy does. That's one thing. No, NFL, like you don't do this during the regular season. It makes absolutely 0 sense. Just pick a guy and stick with him. There was no reason to bench Fautanu. I think it was an interesting decision to start with Fautanu. But if you're going to make the decision, stand on it and don't be wavering and be like, oh, you know, we'll get our other guy in, Broderick Jones. No. That is the stupidest thing. We deserved what happened there. Should have never happened from the start. And that cost us a series right there. That was the series where Fields was making all these plays and everything's getting called back because of Broderick Jones penalties. If Fautanu was still in there, maybe we score a touchdown. And the game isn't as close as what it looked like at the end. I couldn't believe we did that. Like, you don't do, like, say even for the Steelers here, right? We got this whole quarterback controversy. Like, who's the better guy between Fields, Russell Wilson, or any team that has, say, like 2 good quarterbacks on your roster. You pick a guy going into the game and you expect to go with that guy for the whole game, right? That's the expectation. When do you ever say that for really any position in the NFL? Yeah, we're gonna try this starter out for 2 series, and then we're gonna get the other guy in for 2 series. Or we're just gonna flip flop it, huh? I mean, the Steelers obviously got the answer they needed going forward here, but unfortunately, it cost us a series. And so, yeah, we deserved that. I think it was an awful decision to begin with, and that's the result that we got. Now, my next question is going back to Fields a little bit, because I hinted that we might need to get some more assets around him, more weapons around him, because I got to see some elite traits from Fields in this game. Not only the game managing stuff that we saw in the Falcons game, right? The game managing stuff, he's not killing us. If anything, I thought he took a step up in the game managing, particularly in the first half. Again, particularly in the first half. I want to rewatch that second half and what we did on offense, because part of me thinks we just saw what our defense was doing and we got conservative. So I don't know how much I really even want to put what happened with the second half offense on Fields, because I felt at times, particularly when Najee Harris is in there and we're running the ball, it gets predictable. We did have a bunch of penalties in the second half too. But with how our defense was playing, we're up 2 scores. I could see why we did get conservative a little bit. Not the biggest fan of it, but I think if you look at it, if you go back and look at it on like a series by series basis, maybe it makes sense with how we were calling up the plays and doing some of the conservative stuff. Because, if we get, to a 2nd and 20 after a holding call or a bad penalty, yeah, maybe we don't want to take this shot down the field or do anything risky because we're up 2 scores. And we were up 2 scores for the whole second half outside of that last field goal Denver kick, because it was 13-0, and then Denver got 3. When was the 3? That might have been like early in the fourth quarter, but we're still up 2 scores. So I don't even know if I want to put all that on Fields. But whenever we let Fields actually do some stuff, I thought he looked really good in the first half. But there were times where I'm seeing a really nice throw by Fields where he's giving his receiver a shot at it, not coming down with it. And like the 2 that I'm thinking in particular with Calvin Austin III, we're trying to throw crossers over the middle to a Calvin Austin who's 5'7". We're trying to throw him like a 15, 20-yard pass across the middle. And I thought Fields, he made a decent – I thought it was a decent throw. Was it the greatest of reads? I don't know. I thought it was a decent throw. It was in traffic, but I'm just wondering if it's a different receiver, like a big-bodied receiver, a guy that could be a legitimate number 2 across from Pickens, more like a guy that's maybe just a little bit more of a deep threat. If they come down with it, because they have more of a physical presence, and then that cornerback isn't able to get across like he did on Calvin Austin. Like Calvin Austin was basically 0 physical presence there. And then the other one was down the field. Again, thank God that Calvin Austin's okay from that. But that was a good throw. That was right there for Calvin Austin. If that was Pickens, Pickens comes down with that. I bet $100 on that. But I'm just wondering if that's a quality wide receiver 2 or like a wide receiver 1B. Because I think Pickens I think he's getting into that. He's the franchise guy. I think no matter who we bring in, unless it's a Devontae Adams or DK Metcalf, like they're going to be the wide receiver 2 or the wide receiver 1B to Pickens right now. Because not only is I think Pickens leveling up here, but Fields got a really good connection with Pickens too. The question is, do we need to trade for a receiver? I said going into this game, or even pick up a receiver, although we know the free agent market's bleak right now. The top guy out there would be Michael Thomas. Most likely we would have to trade for a dude. I said going into this game, I think we're going to be told what we need to be told about. And we're going to get the answer to the question about this receiver room outside of Pickens and whether or not we really need to bring in another guy. The problem is, here's my problem that is in the back of my mind still. We didn't get to see Roman Wilson. I thought we were going to get to see Roman Wilson. Hopefully for next week against his former coach. I don't think we're going to make any rash decisions about trading for a receiver right now, but I think deep down we got our answer, right? We probably need another guy. So hopefully teams like the Raiders continue to lose and Devontae Adams doesn't do as good, although Gardner Minshew was getting the ball today a lot. I actually watched that one. Devontae had 110 yards. Actually, Devontae let down Gardner Minshew a couple times with some big drops. He could have had an even better stat line. But the Raiders won today. We needed them to win, but hopefully going forward they continue to lose and they could be sellers at the trade deadline. Any other team that I'm thinking of, that any of you guys could be thinking of with a good receiver, we want them to lose. A good receiver that could be on the trade block. We want them to lose, and hopefully that guy can be available. Another team could be the Panthers. That's an easy one right now. Do we get Deontay back? The Panthers look absolutely dismal. Deontay has to be regretting his decision to go there so bad right now. So bad. I mean, he didn't pick to go there, but I'm sure if hindsight was 20/20 for him and he knew his team was going to be the Panthers, his new team was going to be the Panthers, he would have said, you know what, I could deal with whatever discomfort or displeasure that I have here in Pittsburgh. I could deal with that compared to Carolina, because that is going really bad for him. Really, really bad. So that's a guy maybe. Courtland Sutton, I mean, I guess he was all right today. He was completely shut out in the first half, but then he was starting to get after it in the second. That's obviously a name we've been talking about all offseason. But I think we are going to need another receiver. And that's even with Roman Wilson coming back. Because Roman Wilson could be our slot guy. Who's that outside guy? I've liked some things Van Jefferson's been bringing to the table. Calvin Austin, I like him in the punt return game. I don't know if he's the receiving threat that we hoped that he was going to be. He could be good on drag routes. He could be good on an out route. Vertical threat, he's got the speed to at least take the top off the defense. But if he's not able to get separation off the line, what good is that? When he's got to be maybe side to side with the defender down the field. We saw what happened today. He's not able to jump up over receiver. He's not really able to outman the cornerback just because of his size. And it is what it is. It's just the type of receiver he is. Nothing against it. Remember last year, Kenny threw that one over the middle of the field against the Texans, and there wasn't too much separation between Austin and the other guy, but it looked like Austin had the position. It's just with Steven Nelson, he was just that much bigger than Calvin Austin. Whereas if that was a Pickens, if that was another big body receiver, I think they at least can jump up and high point it. So that's what I'm wondering. Do we got the weapons completely dialed in right now for what we need on this offense? Yeah, I think we're a piece away. And we talked about it how many times this offseason? Trading for Ayuk, trading for this guy, trading for that guy, wide receiver too. So this is where we're at. Luckily, we're 2-0. And we could talk about this being an issue as opposed to being 0-2 and talking about this being an issue. There could be worse problems. I will say, I think we got our slot corner kind of figured out with Beanie Bishop. He looks really good out there. Anytime I see him, I'm just wondering to myself, is this too good to be true? We got this undrafted rookie free agent out there. He's playing good for us, and he fills a pretty big need. When's the slipper going to fall off? Is this just too good to be true? But he keeps making plays, and I've been really liking what I'm seeing from Beanie Bishop. We got to shout out Corey Trice. So we'll just transition to the defense here. Big shout out to Corey Trice. I said he was one of our sleepers on defense. He gets the pick in the end zone. First pick of his career. Love it. I think he's perfect for that type of stuff. Whenever the other team gets in the red zone where you don't have to worry about speed as much, he's perfect with the range that he could deliver. Deshaun Elliott, he might be the most unsung signing or pickup this offseason. He might be the worst kept secret on this team at this point after these first 2 weeks because, man, huge tackle for loss in the backfield. Huge tackle for loss. That was like in the middle of the game. I think Broncos got it to like a 2nd and short or something, and then he makes it so then they have a 3rd and long, just gets to the running back in like a split second, just delivers a big hit, a Ryan Clark-esque type of hit. He's been awesome for us. Like we've been praising Peyton Wilson. We've been praising Patrick Queen. All these guys that we picked up this offseason, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, all the bigger name dudes that are new to the Steelers, we've been hyping up. But Deshaun Elliott, we didn't talk about as much, really, because, I mean, part of it was because we didn't really know how this whole safety combination was going to look with him and Casey being there, complimenting Minka. But Deshaun Elliott's been a blessing these first 2 weeks, to say the least. TJ Watt, did he have a down game? I say that jokingly because he still had 2 tackles for loss, a sack, a pass deflection, and 2 QB hits. Should have had better stats, but as I said, he gets held literally every play he's out there. Could have easily seen him getting, 2-3 sacks. But even though he only had 1 sack, the 2 tackles for loss, pass deflection, 2 QB hits, I think his impact, and that's the thing about TJ Watt, his impact was even more felt than what the stat line shows here. And that stat line is still, that's a career day for pretty much every other edge rusher in the league. If you think about it. Highsmith, the guy across from TJ Watt, TJ's Batman, Alex Highsmith, Robin, he had a good day, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, a QB hit. I felt like he was getting held a ton too, and the refs weren't calling it. But the defense, I know I think I was a little bit hard on the team in the intro of this show. Maybe was I too hard? But that was just like my initial feeling with how it ended and how it was a one-score game. And I felt like we just should absolutely dominate them. It shouldn't have even been a question in that second half. But the defense still held on really, really good. You look at the Broncos series on offense. It went punt to start the game, 3 and out. Second series, punt, 3 and out. A punt. They had a few plays that one. And then their fourth one, turnover on downs. A punt after that, another 3 and out. An interception, punt, 3 and out. So their first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 series, they do absolutely nothing. That's 4 3 and outs and an interception and a turnover on downs. That's their first 7 series. They eventually get a field goal, then another punt, 3 and out. And those last 2 series, one of those last 2 series, they're able to get the field goal. That's a very stout effort from any defense. That's very good. That's very, very good. Yeah, Deshaun Elliott with the 9 tackles, the tackle for loss that I was talking about earlier. Patrick Queen, I was a little worried about him going into this game. Happy that it looks like he came out of it completely healthy because he was dealing with a groin in the middle of the week, didn't practice. Dante Jackson, I think he picked up where he left off against the Falcons. Obviously didn't get the pick or anything, but he was fine. JPJ, the typical hiccups from him with the handsy stuff, the penalties. It's going to happen 1 or 2 times a game, but if you're able to keep the opposing team's number 1 to a stat line like what he did with Cortland Sutton, 1 reception, 26 yards. Yeah, so his stat line was even worse than what I thought it was. Sutton had a little bit of a Pickens element in that second half. You know, I was talking about Pickens and him only having 2 receptions, 29 yards, but it felt like his impact was greater. I would say the same for Cortland Sutton. He only had 1 reception, 26 yards, but he was drawing a lot of penalties and helping the Broncos move the ball. Hey, we got the win, man. I think it's fair to question the sustainability of how we do things. It's definitely fair to question that. It was fair to question it last year. But ultimately, winning is the name of the game. And we won the game that was in front of us against the Denver Broncos, 13-6. Can't complain too much. I saw signs from the offense that we did improve from last week, that we were taking a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, it didn't really get showcased in the final score, but I think Fields was showing even more elite traits than what he did in that Falcons game. Like, I think he took a step in the right direction. So the real question is if it comes down to us needing to score over 20 points, maybe winning a shootout, can we do that? We just don't know because we haven't had to do that in these first 2 games. And against the Chargers next week, it might not come down to that either. But at some point, we know 1 game, 1 or 2 games, it's going to come down to that. And maybe it's one of those scenarios where we got to wait and see. Because the way we're playing right now, the margin for error is thin. And we haven't had really much error on offense. We haven't really had much error on defense either, outside of penalties. But we haven't been shooting ourselves in the foot with turnovers. We haven't been shooting ourselves in the foot on defense with, like, really boneheaded plays or awful blown coverages or anything like that. Denver had that cute little trick play. All right, whatever. That was fine. We ended up stopping them. Didn't give up a touchdown there. They ended up kicking a field goal. That was fine. Whatever. But let me check in with what you guys are thinking here. What did I miss? Because I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to hit on. No, not really. No, I think I got most of what I wanted to say. So let's see what you guys got. If I missed anything here, any standout guys, any aspects of this that I glossed over. D-Max says, Tomlin needs to stop moving guys around, a.k.a. Jones, Liao, and put them at a natural spot and let them eat. For sure, man. I didn't get to see enough of Leal today. Loudermilk was out there a lot. Loudermilk was out there a lot in that Atlanta game too. I don't think he necessarily played bad. He had that one tip pass at the line of scrimmage in this Denver game. I'm with you, man, on the Jones stuff. Just really weird with how we handled it. Part of me thinks he just needs to get healthy, and maybe we're doing him a service by benching him and getting Fautanu out there. But if we were going to do it like that, why didn't we just keep Broderick to the sidelines the whole game as opposed to getting him out there for a couple series, especially after Fautanu played good? Like, if you want Jones to get healthy, get right with that elbow and stuff, just don't even play him. Don't even mess with putting him out there. Like, why? And maybe it's a different story if Fautanu plays bad the first couple series and he looks outclassed, but he didn't. Fautanu was better than Broderick Jones, so there was no point of getting Broderick Jones in there. But I also get your point, too, with how we even have him over at right tackle in the first place. We should have had him over at left tackle competing with Dan Moore. Now, last year, that was more out of necessity with Chooks. We were fed up with Chooks and his antics on the sidelines and wanted to get Broderick Jones out there. That's fine. I think we did it one point this offseason. We had a decision to make whether or not we wanted to have Broderick be Mr. Versatile on the offensive line and play both tackle spots, or just get him over to left tackle. We had that fork in the road, and obviously we went with let's have him be versatile. And I'm with you. I don't think I'm the biggest fan of that either. Dre Burns says we would have scored on a 99-yard drive if it wasn't for Jones. I think we deserve that with how we handled it, honestly. We just should have had Fautanu out there the whole time. Are we thinking the same drive, though? Because we had to punt on that. I don't think we got all the way down to the red zone. That was like the third series of the game. Are you talking about the 99-yard drive? Was that the one where we had the pick play penalty? Is that the one you're thinking of? I could be wrong. I could be getting my penalties mixed up here. OG Jeff Bone asked Fields or Wilson. I'm going with Fields. We're 2-0 with Fields, and he's playing good. Here's my question. I'm glad you brought this up because I did not hit on this whenever I was talking about Fields earlier. What is Wilson doing if he was out there today that's anything better than what Fields did, given all the penalties and stuff that happens? I'd argue that Wilson isn't doing as much as what Fields did. I don't think he's necessarily elevating or making some of those splash plays like Fields did. The one rollout where the right edge rusher for the Broncos, I think it was Cooper. I think he got there and immediately. Denver brought the blitz, and then Fields rolled out to the left and was able to get like a positive 15-yard run out of nothing. Russ ain't doing that, man. I don't think Russ is necessarily making some of these throws on the run that Fields is making either. So that's my question. Maybe you could argue Russ gets us a touchdown or two in the first game, but I don't know what Russ is necessarily doing better than Fields in this game. T Chronic 1964 asks, why do we have 19 penalties in 2 games? Some of them have been bad calls by the refs. Maybe half of them have been bad calls by the ref. A little less than half of them. The other are just we're not being disciplined out there. We're committing penalties. It happens. But yes, 19 penalties is too high. A couple of those penalties, 2 or 3, it's, the JPJ holding, the JPJ is getting a little too physical with the receiver he's matched up against. You can account for that every game, right? So that's 2 or 3 of those 19. Some offensive line stuff. Every team's dealing with offense. Is there any really dominant or really, really good offensive lines in the league anymore? I think every team's dealing with offensive line issues and penalties there. And then what are the other ones that I'm just trying to think of off the top of my head? Yeah, a bunch of them were bad calls. Like last week, they were bad calls. It was the offsides on TJ, the offsides on Highsmith, the push-off Pickens had, the pick play from this week on Pickens. There's been some bad ones. JJ200 says, Deke, I'm coming to my first game in the Berg versus the Cowboys. Bring some of the good Cali. We're going to be on the Cowboys pack. We're going to win that game for sure. We're definitely going to win that game. Dak Prescott, the $60 million man, as you saw from this week, isn't necessarily living up to the contract. I don't think he is going to live up to the contract. So, yeah, I don't really expect much different from him whenever we see him in a couple weeks at home at Heinz Field, a.k.a. Acrisure Stadium. I think I'm just going to call it Heinz Field. Like, I don't even want to – should we just say Heinz Field? We know what it is. Like, I think I'm just going to purposely call it Heinz Field going forward. Dre Burns, 2 road wins is huge in the NFL. Good point. Really good point. Noeb 123 asks, do you think they bench Jones or move him again? Yeah, he's going to be sitting. And I think part of that will be him getting healthy. DMass says, Fields should have put this game away early and didn't do it. He's not QB1 yet. I think he did everything he needed to do in that first half. Second half might be a different story. As I said, I want to rewatch it. I think as an offense, we got conservative. And there were times in the second half, though, Fields was doing good things, but penalties and stupid stuff from our offense, I think, kept us backtracking. We were 1 step forward, 2 steps back in the second half. But I think the other part of it was we got conservative with the play calling. I think that was just the mindset and the approach in that second half with us being up 2 scores. And with how the defense was playing, it didn't look like the Broncos were going to score at all. I thought there was a good chance we were going to put up the goose egg on defense. Luis Ramos says Arthur Smith sucks as OC. I don't think so. I'll admit that it gets weird at times whenever you see formations being thrown out there and Pickens isn't there. And it's like 3 tight ends and Scotty Miller. But then when it works, I'm just like, yeah, this is a little reminiscent of the Titans offense. They know we're running it with Najee Harris. They know we're going to be physical, and they're not able to stop it. And that's how things were looking in the first half. Second half, again, it was a different story. I think there were times where we were a little predictable, conservative. Najee's out there. We're just going to hand it off to him. I do wish we were more aggressive at times. I also understand the approach of being a little bit more mellow. It's weird. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a paradox because all it takes is that pick or that backbreaking play that gives the Broncos some spark, and they could turn around and put up points on the board and make it a 1-score game in the snap of fingers. I think we got our identity. I think that's the one thing I could say about this team right now. We already have our identity set. The last 2 years, it took us till like mid-year, like after the buys, and then we start to find our identity of, we're going to be physical, we're going to run the ball. And now I feel like we already got it. The defense is playing great. The offense is doing what they got to do right now. So at least I think that's the silver lining or the optimism I have for this offense is like, this is already the foundation. And we weren't finding this identity. We weren't finding this mojo until midway through these last couple seasons. We already got it right now. It's just we need to go to that next level at some point here. The beautiful thing about winning games, though, is it buys you time. And that's why I would say last year when Kenny would be like 7-4, even though it wasn't looking pretty on offense, he would have those game-winning drives. He would step up in the fourth quarter and play lights out. He played really good in the fourth quarter and help win us the game. Like that, in my opinion, would buy him time for being the starting quarterback for the Steelers because we were winning games with him being out there. And it's the same thing here. We're winning games. So I think it's buying us time to figure this out right now. And I think Justin Fields, he's earned himself another week. And if he keeps playing like this and continues to take another step up, gets a little bit better, then it'll be his job for the rest of the season. If we're sitting at 3-0 and he improves on these last 2 weeks' performances, why are we going to Russ? Because as I said in this game, what is Russ doing better than Fields? I don't see anything. I really don't. I'll get to a couple more comments and I'll get out of here. Steeler fan 532 says it's early in the year. We're not going to show a bunch of looks this early, in my honest opinion. Yeah, maybe part of that is just we're figuring things out. Arthur Smith's figuring things out with the new personnel. Think we were supposed to have Russ be the starter for week 1. We had the approach that he was going to be the guy. Now it's Justin Fields. So I think he's still figuring some things out and how to call a good offense with Fields at the quarterback. And I think he did a really good job in the first half. I think that was pretty much how you want to call it to a T. I love the Darnell Washington isolation. Tommy Vincent bring this up. I need to see Darnell Washington have a tutty every game. I love that isolation over in the corner of the end zone there against that way smaller safety. And Fields making the perfect pass to him, get him the ball. But you could see on that drive, we were doing a lot of that heavy personnel stuff. We were running the ball, doing some play action. It was cool, man. It was cool. It was methodical, played into our identity. This is who we want to be. Got the touchdown. It was a breath of fresh air. It definitely was. But then we weren't really able to keep it up. That was unfortunate. But all right, man. I'm out of here. Good win on the road. Got some things to iron out still. But we're on our way. Back at home against the Chargers this week. Stay chilling, everyone. And peace.